It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of June 26, 1998. We've got 7 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Eddie Murphy in Dr. Dolittle.
For thousands of years, animals have been trying to tell us something. But their cries have fallen on deaf ears. Until they found John Dolittle.
Now what?
And now they won't shut up.
Hey, where's he think he's gonna put that?
You don't want to know.
Don't let him stick that thing up my hello!
20th Century Fox presents Eddie Murphy.
We're gonna have to give you CPR. You know how to do CPR?
CPR? I can't even spell it. He's about to die.
Dr. Dolittle.
It's a false alarm. It's just gas.
Whoa, you're telling me.
Interesting thing about Dr. Dolittle is that there's many different versions. Everyone knows the Rex Harrison version from 1967, which is a musical of the same name, and that's more of a closer adaptation to the book. There's, of course, these movies, and then there's the Dr. Dolittle movie that Robert Downey Jr. starred in, which tried to go back to more of what the Rex Harrison film was. Even though it kind of failed on that front there, I could see why people think of it as a bad movie, but I don't hate it as much as everybody else does. These movies I'm more relative to, because these came out during a time when I grew up with them, and basically the same concept. It's based on a series of children's stories of the same name by Hugh Lofting, but they use no materials from any of the novels. In fact, everything's put into a modern day setting when you have this doctor, John Dolittle, and his ability to talk to animals. Although the Pushimu Pulio, which is a much loved feature of the books, notably makes a very brief appearance in a couple of scenes in this movie. And I have to give the movie credit for doing something a little bit different than I would have expected for an Eddie Murphy Dr. Dolittle movie. And I think they did a pretty good job with it. I think it is a very solid film. Eddie Murphy fits the role very well here. It's got a strong voice cast overall here. I mean, this thing is jam-packed with stars. I mean, you expect it for a film of this caliber. You know, Norm Macdonald is the dog, Albert Brooks playing a Bengal tiger, Chris Rock, Rene Santoni, John Leguizamo, Julie Kavner, Gary Shandling, Elle DeGeneres, Brian Doyle Murray, Phil Proctor, Jenna Elfman, Gilbert Godfrey, Paul Rubens, Jonathan Lipnicki. There's just a strong cast in the animation department, not even the animation department, but just in the voice cast alone. And then you throw in people like Ossie Davis and Oliver Platt and Peter Boyle, Richard Schiff, Kristen Wilson, Jeffrey Tambor, Kyla Pratt, Raven Simone, Paul Giamatti has a cameo in here. I mean, they packed the stars in on this movie. Gilbert Godfrey is also one of the voices in this. As far as the movie itself goes, I think it's a fun movie. I think it definitely has a lot of elements that make it a fun film. You really do like the comedy and the camaraderie between Eddie Murphy and the characters and the animals he has to interact with Chris Rock and Norm Macdonald in particular. And the movie is just a ton of fun. I remember laughing a lot more than I would have thought of with this film. I mean, they do a pretty good job of giving you just enough there to really give you something to really appreciate with. It's not the Nutty Professor. It's not on that same level, but I mean, it does a pretty good job of coming about as close as you can get with it. I mean, like I said, these are the movies that I grew up with when it comes to Dr. Dolittle. I didn't grow up with the Rex Harrison one, and I was a little bit older for the Robert Downey Jr. ones. These are the movies that I grew up with. These are the ones that I grew up with more. I definitely think this is the best of the 4, at least in my personal opinion it is. I'd say definitely check it out. Dr. Dolittle, a fun little movie overall. It gives you exactly what you kind of hope for with it. Directed by Betty Thomas, too, I should mention, who also did the Brady Bunch movie, and she did Private Parts, of course, which are 2 of my favorite movies, so 2 of my favorite comedies of hers, so yeah, I kind of enjoyed it for what she does with this. So that's Dr. Dolittle. But let's get to probably the best movie that came out this weekend, and that is Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight.
Oh, Robert, it's your first time being on it. Not doing great.
Stop it, hands in the air!
They were made for each other. Sure, easy to talk to. But sometimes your career, wear one of these, I don't ski, can kill a relationship.
Turn around and get your hands up there!
Hey, put the holes in your car. George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, Ving Rhames, and Albert Brooks.
Be surprised what you can get asteroid the right way.
Out of Sight. This film is not yet rated. It stars June 26th.
There's a lot of interesting little history in between what goes on in this movie and what goes on afterwards. First of all, this is directed by Steven Soderbergh, written by Scott Frank, and adapted from Elmore Leonard's book of the same name, which you're going to notice from some cameos in this particular film. You got George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez is a U.S. Marshal, Karen Sisco, and George Clooney is a bank robber. They is when they meet, and they meet as she's trying to bring him in, and they eventually fall for each other, and it leads to a lot of complications in between the two of them and their jobs and what they're trying to do. But not only that, but you have Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Dennis Farina, Nancy Allen, Steve Zahn, Catherine Keener, Albert Brooks. Michael Keaton briefly plays his role from Jackie Brown in this movie, as does Samuel L. Jackson, who has a cameo in here. But not only that, of course, this led to a spin-off series for Karen Sisco starring Carla Gugino, which was actually really good. But unfortunately, it didn't last for... It only lasted one season, but it was actually a pretty decent show, and she would actually later reprise that role on an episode of Justified, and since Justified was based off a Elmore Leonard novel as well. And speaking of that, Paul Calderon, who plays Raymond Cruz in this movie, reprises that role in the recently aired miniseries Justified City Primeval. So there's a lot of interesting different universes coming together in this all starting with this film. This is just a very fun, stylish movie. I love Steven Soderbergh's work, and George Clooney, how can you go wrong with him? Jennifer Lopez works very well here. I mean, looking sexy as all hell in this movie. I mean, the trailers for this movie literally have a scene where they're just showing you her taking her clothes off. I mean, well, George Clooney too, so we can appeal to both the men and the women. But they work off each other very well here. The comedy is very good. The writing overall is top notch. The acting overall is great. It's just a fun, stylized movie that just... I go back to it on a number of different occasions. I have a good time watching this movie every single time. I think it's one of Steven Soderbergh's best movies. And I like a lot of his movies, but this is one of my favorites, the ones I always go back to every once in a while. It's a great film, really well done, great visuals, great comedy, great action. I can't recommend it enough. Out of Sight is a terrific film. Seek it out if you haven't seen it already. You will not be disappointed by it. And see if you can find Karen Sisco, too, the TV series. I will tell you, it's a very good show that sadly did not get the appreciation that it deserves. It was canceled before its time. I'd say definitely check that show out if you can find it somewhere. You will not be disappointed by that either. So that's Out of Sight. Oh, and Justified City Primeval. Not like I need to tell you to watch those shows, because most of you probably have already had. But if you're not, seek those shows out as well. So that's Out of Sight. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is the re-release of Gone with the Wind.
Available on video. See Gone with the Wind as you've never seen it before, in its original Technicolor glory, and with a remastered digital soundtrack. The romance.
Kiss me once.
The event.
If God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again.
Bring home the biggest film of all time, the way it was meant to be seen. Gone with the Wind.
Of course, Gone with the Wind. I don't think I need to tell you what the plot is, but in case you want to know, this is set in the American South against the backdrop of the American Civil War and the Reconstruction era, and follows the story of Scarlett O'Hara, played by Vivien Leigh, who's the strong-willed daughter of a Georgia plantation owner, and following her romantic pursuit of Ashley Wilkes, played by Leslie Howard, who's married to her cousin Melanie Hamilton, played by Olivia de Havilland, and her subsequent marriage to Red Butler, played by Clark Gable. This is a film that has a lot of production history, but it's also went on to win 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actress for Vivien Leigh, Best Supporting Actress for Hattie McDaniel, actually becoming the first African-American to win an Academy Award, which is unprecedented for the time. And it's a film that has stood the test of time. It's faced a lot of controversies over the years. It's been criticized for historical negationism, glorifying slavery and the lost cause of the Confederacy myth, but it's also been credited for triggering changes in the way African Americans were depicted cinematically. It's a film that has been regarded as many as one of the greatest films of all time, and me personally, I like it. I don't love it. I think stuff like Citizen Kane and Casablanca, those classic movies still hold up well. Those are some of my favorite movies of all time. So I think those movies hold up a lot better than Gone with the Wind does. But Gone with the Wind has just so much there that you have to appreciate, just on the visual and technical level alone. The production history they had to deal with. Vivien Leigh is very good here. Clark Gable. It's a very good film. It's an entertaining film. It has flaws. It has a lot of notable flaws to it. I won't go as far as to say it's a cinematic masterpiece by any means, but I don't think it's as bad as most people give it credit. I don't think it's as well, not even bad. I don't think it's as great as everybody makes it out to be, but it's not a bad movie either. It just doesn't have that lasting longevity to me compared to some of these other movies that came out around that time that still hold up after all these years, like Citizen Kane and Casablanca. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this isn't a great movie. It would have been interesting to see this on a big screen as they put this back in theaters for, I guess, maybe the 60th anniversary or so, or something like that. I don't know why they put it back out there, but they put it out there. It was given a complete audio and video restoration when they had the 50th anniversary, and then released by Warner Brothers, who had just bought MGM at that point in 1998, yeah, like I said, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie per se, but I do think it's a good film overall. If you want to see a great piece of filmmaking in terms of the technical and visual levels, definitely seek this one out. I think it's more than worth it. I think most people have seen this movie, but if you've not, it's kind of required to go check this movie out. Even if you don't end up liking it in the end, it's kind of required viewing, honestly. So that's Gone with the Wind. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Smoke Signals.
You have to remember one thing, Victor. He went back for you.
Smoke signals.
So you've got the story of two Native Americans, Arnold, who rescues Thomas from a fire when he was a child. Thomas thinks of Arnold as a hero, while Arnold's son Victor resents his father's alcoholism, violence, and abandonment of his family. What's notable about this movie is that this is the first movie that is written, directed, and produced by Native Americans. And it's actually based on a book of short stories called The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven. Adam Beach is in it. Irene Bedard, I think is Pocahontas, if I'm not mistaken. Is she Pocahontas? Yeah, she's Pocahontas. But that's pretty much all I know about this movie. I've never seen it before, so I don't really know if it's any good or not. But it's got a lot of good reviews. A lot of people really liked it. It got 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert, so I don't deny it's probably a good movie. So not much more I can say about that one. So that's Smoke Signals. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is Buffalo 66. I wish I could show you that trailer because that trailer is amazing, but a couple things. One, even though this is technically a Lionsgate movie, I think Universal owns the rights to this, and Universal is very hard pressed when it comes to putting clips from their movies on there. So I only took a little bit from that trailer, but most of the trailer is just music and there's no dialogue in there. But so that's why I can't show it to you. But like I said, if you can find that trailer, seek it out because it's a damn good trailer. It's the directorial debut for Vincent Gallo, who gave us The Brown Bunny, and he stars in this along with Christina Ricci as well as Ben Gazzara and Angelica Houston. And you have Gallo playing a man who kidnaps a young tap dancer named Layla, played by Ricci, and is forced to pretend to be his wife to impress his parents, played by Gazzara and Houston, after getting released from prison. You also have Rosanna Arquette, Mickey Rourke, Jan Michael Vincent in here as well. And the title of this refers to the Buffalo Bills, the NFL team, who have not won a championship since 1965, the AFL championship game, which was actually played on December 26, 1965. The plot includes indirect references to the Bills' narrow loss to the New York Giants in Super Bowl 35, and which of course was decided by a missed field goal, wide right, Scott Norwood. Do the history on that, fun people. I'm here to just talk about the movie, and this is a really good movie, and just on that visual level alone, I think the trailer really suckered a lot of people in, myself included. I was just kind of like, what a bizarre-looking film, and what a cool-looking concept. And the movie definitely delivers on that. It has a great soundtrack with a lot of British progressive rock music. Vincent Gallo's very good in the film, and Christina Ricci continues to blossom into this rising young actress that keeps growing, that kept getting better and better with each film. We talked about her in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It was a big year for her in 1998 to show everybody that, hey, she's a really good actress, and this movie definitely shows that. It's a really good movie. I'd say definitely check it out. Buffalo 66. I'd say definitely check it out. So, with that said, on to the next movie, and that is Picnic at Hanging Rock. So this is actually a re-release of a 1975 Australian mystery film, which is directed by Peter Weir, who this summer had The Truman Show. And I guess they re-released this because of that. This was one of the films that helped to draw international attention to the then emerging Australian new wave of cinema, which of course would later lead to something like Mad Max becoming the big success that it was. You basically have a story about several schoolgirls and their teacher during a picnic at Hanging Rock, Victoria on Valentine's Day in 1900, and the subsequent effects of the local community. This film is notable because it also has Jackie Weaver, who would later go on to be nominated for an Oscar for a role in Animal Kingdom in 2010. And with that, I don't really know too much else about the movie overall. I thought I thought the trailer looked kind of interesting. It's kind of a 1970s trailer where they basically show you much of the movie itself and is without really showing you the entire plot of the film. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen it before, so I can't really say too much about it. But the trailer convinced me that it could be somewhat interesting. But that's Picnic at Hanging Rock. So on to the last film we have here, and that is Dear Jessie.
Line to find out that this apparently is a homosexual thing.
Dear Jessie, for a long time, I thought we had nothing in common, but I was wrong. For most of your 24 years in the United States Senate, you've been obsessed with homosexual men. For most of my adult life, so have I.
At first, you think of Helms as a kind of caricature of everything that most embarrasses you about being a North Carolinian. And then slowly you come back to the notion that there are many qualities that are admirable in this man.
So this is a documentary set in the first-person narrative style in the form of a letter to Senator Jesse Helms, a Republican from North Carolina. The filmmaker explores the parallels and differences between himself, an openly gay man, and the anti-gay rights public servant. And the film also features interviews with Helms' foes and fans, community activists, I should say, not communist activists, novelist Lee Smith and Alan Gorganis, openly gay Caribou Mayor Mike Nelson, and people in the street, including a brief interview with Matthew Shepard, then a student at Catawba College. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Catawba College? It's a college in Salisbury, North Carolina. Like I said, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but if I did, I'm sorry. But I really don't know too much about this movie. I've never seen it before, never heard of it. Could be good. That's pretty much all I could give you on that one. So that's pretty much it. So that's Dear Jessie. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll have what ended up being the biggest release of the year, and that is Michael Bay's Armageddon. And we'll also look at Knights of Cabria, a re-release of a movie I don't know too much about, but 2 movies to look at next time around, so not a big week next week as we get to the midway point of 1998. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page, check out the previous video, and also hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, thanks for watching, and take care.